I'm a dad who's been hard on himself his whole life. And in fact, one of those aha moments came when I was working with a coach. And he asked me a very simple, but it was a profound question. He says, Drew, why are you so hard on yourself? And it just stopped me in my tracks.
What up, everybody? It's Ed Gow Jr. of the Dad Central Show and Dad Central, and a gentleman who agrees the value of WD 40.
Yes, sir. I agree. WD-40 is like magical stuff. It works on everything. The
Absolutely.
only downside is that smell, but other than that, it's magical.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't know, this is Drew. And Drew, what are you all about today?
Today, we're going to be talking about how to fix your mistakes as a dad. And why are we talking about it? Because in our community, our dad mentor community, we've been collecting questions from dads that they want answers to. And this is another one of those questions. How do I fix my mistakes as a dad? So we're going to talk about that.
All right.
And what we're going to provide is, oh, you go ahead.
Okay, no problem. The Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man because when men care for themselves and others, there's positive impact. Now,
So
you
in
want
this
to
I
go ahead.
do. In this episode, what you're going to learn number one is the crucial practice most dads miss about correcting mistakes. And number two, three qualities that every dad needs to make it right.
Well, kicking off this conversation, I always like to use a phrase that I share with a lot of people. You don't have to be perfect all the time. You just have to be perfect at the right time, Dad. Agreed?
Ooh, that's tough. That's a good one to start off with because I'm not sure that I agree.
Okay.
The reason being the word perfect is challenging for a recovering perfectionist. And I
What
don't know if there's
should we end this episode right here, family? So this is gonna be fun. Drew and I are gonna have a little tit for tat here. So here we go. Go ahead, man.
Well, I mean, I don't know if any other dads listening, have noticed that they have some perfectionist tendencies. I'm a dad who's been hard on himself his whole life. And in fact, one of those aha moments came when I was working with a coach. And he asked me a very simple, but it was a profound question. He says, Drew, why are you so hard on yourself? And it just stopped me in my tracks. And so to the recovering perfectionist who's hard on himself to say, you don't have to be perfect all the time, but you got to be perfect at the right time. You're like, man, there's pressure there. I got to make that work. And so what I've found, not to be disagreeable, but I think to offer a different perspective is, and it's funny you say that because you always sign off, remember to give yourself grace. I'm not going to, anyway. So I just thought of that now. The idea of perfect at the right time can be stress inducing for dads who have maybe had those similar tendencies to me. Now, if you're like Ed and you're calm, cool, and collected all the time, then you just dismiss my, overreactive response to Ed there, and you say,
No, no,
"Hey,
I don't dismiss it. I don't dismiss it. And it's actually yesterday I was in a session with someone and she said this, she goes, I know, Ed, I know it's all on me. It's us. They realize it, but it's getting past it. That's
yeah,
the challenge, which is a big challenge. And hey, we've all been there. Not to say I've always been this way, because in order to get through, you got to go through. But I hear where you're coming from. That let me say, you can strive to be perfect at the right time.
yeah, yeah." Well, it relates to another podcast we did, which talked about how do you be a good dad, and it was about focusing on your child's needs. And so I think really what you're saying, if you're okay with my friendly adjustment, is what you're saying is meet your child's needs in the way they need it at the time they need it. And I think that's so bang on. That's
Yep.
exactly it. And all the other times, give yourself grace. And even if you don't meet your child's needs exactly what they need at the time they need it, give yourself grace again and know that it's like putting money in the bank account. The more you consistently do that day after day, day after day, day after day, guess what? If there's all of a sudden a big withdrawal, you're not in the red. You got more than enough cushion built up. And it's like that in the relationship with your child. Every day that you build fundamentals of connection, of love, of appreciation, of play, of joy, of fun, of like, I'm there for them. They can trust you. You are building a reserve for when, hey, you do make those mistakes, as long as they're not huge, catastrophic mistakes. And then the key from my perspective that I think is the most overlooked and missed thing about this idea of correcting mistakes is forgiving ourselves. I think dads who are hard on themselves, recovering perfectionists like me, we beat ourselves up. We hold ourselves in contempt. And number one, we have very negative self-talk. We call ourselves names. We say, why did we screw up again? What is your problem? Why can't you fix this? Why aren't you better? Why haven't you learned this already? Why have you done this again to your child? Or to your, any situation. And so most dads miss this. If you cannot give yourself grace and forgive yourself for that mistake, every time it or something related to it comes up, you're going to be triggered and you're probably going to move yourself into a place of guilt, of shame, and of kind of you're dismissing your ability to overcome this and step into the father that you truly are, which is a good father, which is a father who meets their child's needs, which is a father who can connect and do all the things that your negative self-talk is telling you you can't do. Step number one, you got you have to learn to forgive yourself for the mistakes and begin speaking to yourself in the way that affirms and calls out the strengths that you have as a father. And here's why. If you don't want to pass that same trait on to your child, then you're the one who's got to change. You don't want your kids to speak to themselves the way that you're speaking to yourself, then you have to change that first. And it starts by forgiveness and then reclaiming your strength and your abilities as a father.
100%. I'll agree with that. And I think in a previous episode, I said this, I mentioned again, who who are you surrounding yourself with too? Right? Are you in a graceful environment a lot of the times, right? Because again, if you have a community of people who ride with you when you're up and when you're not up, that will soften those times when you make a mistake. And also, as I say, a mistake is a moment; it's not a person, right? It's a you're not you. No one's. I don't think anyone's born a mistake. So dads, fathers, male caregivers, mistakes are going to happen. It's how you handle them. And remember too, the way you react to them, as Drew said, your child is watching. It's a really big thing. So it's not once your child is born, it's not about you anymore. So even more so, those things are really crucial. And again, give yourself grace. Those things happen. And if it's a mistake that you can overcome, ask for help. Ask for help. Simply acknowledge that I made a mistake and why did it happen? And what's the next best thing you can do to bounce back from that mistake? Is it what I think also too, forgiving yourself, as we said already, forgive yourself. Because, and I'm sure Drew's encountered it, and he said part of his journey, too many fathers are too hard on themselves. Give yourself grace, forgive yourself. And once you give that forgiveness piece, then what's the next best thing you can bounce back from that? Drew wanted to add?
Yeah, this was really important to me years ago, and so important that I ended up writing an article about it. And it was called Five key steps to overcoming your mistakes as a dad. And so, when I see this question from dads, I light up because I know how hard it is. And it's taken a lot of work for me to get to the point where, I feel like this was years ago, and now I feel like I does this idea of making mistakes is honestly, it's the daily truth of being a dad, and it does not trip me up. I do not get stuck, and I quickly move past it now. And so, what I want to say to, again, the listener who maybe resonates with this question and is feeling it, is that you can get past it, and it can be something that's in your way, in your rearview mirror. I know, because if somebody as, so hard on themselves as I was, could work through this and get free of it, you can too. So I want to encourage you, if you're in this place, I want to encourage you to go and read that article. We'll include it in the show notes. 5 key steps to overcoming your mistakes as a dad. It's got, I would say, some of it might be counterintuitive, similar to my message of starting with forgiving yourself. But I believe, from my own journey and the results that I've seen, this will help you and move you to a better, healthier place, and a place that I know you want to be.
So as we wrap it up today, I want to bless and compliment the dads that put this question in the response, because that's a big win in itself for any dad, father, or male caregiver who said that, because you're taking the right first step. I want to overcome this. So that's the first step. And then continue on in your progression, whether it's through us ourselves or others, qualified assistance to help you move forward. I'm just going to end off with this when it comes to mistakes and fatherhood. Fixing mistakes as a dad requires courage, humility, and genuine commitment to improvement. By acknowledging your errors, apologizing sincerely, making amends, and learning from your experiences, you can rebuild trust and strengthen your relationship with your children. Remember that the journey of parenthood is ongoing, and each step you take toward becoming a better dad makes a significant positive difference in your family's life. So, want to say thanks for everyone for tuning in. Appreciate it, giving the most important thing you have, your time, to us and fatherhood. So, as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And as we said earlier on, make sure you give yourself grace. Be well.